This is Barrels and Barrels, a bourbon and baseball podcast, with your hosts, Brandon Spinner and Michael Burns.
And welcome into Barrels and Barrels, a bourbon and baseball podcast. I am one of your co-hosts, Brandon Spinner, alongside Michael Burns, the other co-host of this bourbon and baseball podcast. Mikey Burns, happy Wednesday. How are you, my friend?
I'm doing great, Brandon. I've got baseball on. There's been baseball on all day. Gosh, I love baseball season.
I love when there's games at noon, and then you've got the West Coast games that are their noon games that are on at 3. And I've been also watching baseball most of the day today while I was at work. I have a 3-monitor desk, and I always tuck it on the third monitor on the side with just enough volume up that I can hear what's going on, but it's not like overly distracting.
There you go.
It's called efficiency. For the sixth, is it the 6th straight week or the 7th straight week? Michael has a different backdrop.
That's right. That's I think the 7th.
The 7th, yeah. You've been in like 4 different rooms. You've been in 3 different cities. You've been in 2 different rooms in your own house. You've painted
3
that
different
wall.
states.
Yeah, 3 different states. It's been a while.
2 time zones.
Yeah, 2. Well, I've been in 2 time zones too. Just didn't record in one of them. As far as what's going on, I'm talking about Michael's backdrop. You can go see that over on YouTube, and you can find us on YouTube. All of our podcasts are there. We're throwing out a lot more extra content there as well. Baseball-related content. We'll have more bourbon-related content there via our YouTube Shorts page. So just go check us out there. Our YouTube page, you can find us youtube.com at Barrels and Barrels Pod. Again, our @ symbol is Barrels, the letter N, Barrels Pod, on YouTube, on Instagram, as well as over on Facebook as well. We're almost to 100 subscribers on YouTube. That was a big jump this week. A big thank you to each and every one of you who subscribed. Maybe you're a new viewer, but you just subscribed over the last week. Thank you very much for tuning in. We're almost to 100. I'm going to set us a goal, Michael. We got to get to 100 by the end of this month. April 30th.
And we're at April 30th in 4 days. We're at.
Well, last check was 94. So I think we can do it. So this is a push. Tell your friends about us. We would love to hear what they think of our podcast. We're also on Instagram, almost to 1,000 followers. We're about like 972 last check as well. You can head on over to Barrels and Barrels Pod on Instagram as well. Facebook, we jumped up about 60 followers on Facebook this week. And Twitter, we had a great week as well. So you can find us there at Barrels and Barrels. Again, on Twitter, Barrels and Barrels. We're at 128 followers. At the time of our recording last time, we had 59. So we doubled our following on Twitter. And that's partially because
the
after
content is coming in hot.
Yes, and that's partially higher because after 6 months of doing this podcast, it's April, right? So we started after 7 months of doing this podcast. Michael Burns has finally graced the Barrels and Barrels podcast Twitter account with a follow. It only took 7 months, Mikey. It only took 7 months. But he did it. So we want you to as well, at Barrels and Barrels on Twitter. You can find us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify Podcast, as well as Amazon, Stitcher, and Google, as well as iHeartRadio Podcasts. That's it for all the housework up front. Housekeeping up front. We are a bourbon and baseball podcast. We start with bourbon, and this week we've got a sample sent to us by one of the more popular brands out there, especially when it comes to the blending world, and that is bourbon by Barrel Craft Spirits. So this is Bourbon Batch 34. Lucky enough that they sent us a flask of this to sample and try. You've got, what batch is that behind you?
I've got 10 batches ago of batch 24.
So Michael's got batch 24. I've got batch 33, which we recently did. Not recently. I guess it was last year we did a review on it. I did not go back and check that review. I do not know where we have it rated, and I hope you're not looking for it right now, because I want to rate this and then go back and see how we ranked 33 to see maybe where they stack up to both of us. We've also done Barrel's Vantage as well. So this is batch 34. This just came out, 114.62 proof. It says 6 years on the bottle because if you're new to bourbon or whiskey, you have to put the youngest age of the juice that goes into the bottle. This is a mixture of 6-year barrels, 8-year barrels, 10-year barrels, and 15-year barrels. And this is coming from Tennessee, Kentucky, and Indiana. So it's most likely three different sources. It could be more, but it's at least a minimum of 3. You're going to guess the Indiana is MGP. And then from there, your guess is as good as mine. Maybe some Dickel. That would be my guess, the Tennessee juice, but you don't know. So let's dive into it. I've been really liking what Barrel Craft Spirits itself has been putting out as of late.
You really liked Barrel 33.
Yeah. And I really like Vantage.
Look how much you've got left of that 33. You've only got a couple pours really left.
Yeah, I've got about 35% of the bottle, maybe.
Look how long I've had this guy.
When did you finally crack that open?
That's true. I held on to it for a long time. I'm going to say right before we did 33.
Yeah, I think that's true as well. So you held on that for likely years, I would assume, right?
At least 1, maybe 2.
So I just poured mine. I mentioned this is a 6-year bourbon, but there are 8-year, 10-year, and 15-year barrels. This comes from the website of an MSRP of $84.99. I do see it on other websites for in the mid-70s, so I'm going to guess that you could probably find it cheaper in some spots, but $85 is about where this ranks when it comes out. So if you see it on the shelves, it should be right around $85. I know Costco's generally have it for a little bit lower.
Oh, the Costco has it a little bit lower.
The Costco. That's what you call it, right? Yeah.
So, Brandon, I'm keeping notes. I've started writing notes as you read out the mash bills and stuff. I just want to give a shout out for what I'm writing with here.
Oh, that's right.
And that's Michael King's Louisville Slugger bat pen I've got here. So, it's a pen made out of a Louisville Slugger, and I feel professional writing notes with this thing.
And that's what I've been taking notes with for the last couple of weeks, because Michael also gave me one, and I sent yours in the latest care package. But yes, this is from, if you find him on Instagram, that is at 1311MISC. I'm going to see miscellaneous. It's actually funny why it's the 1311, and I'll let you go and ask him what the actual reason for those numbers are. It's a lot simpler than you would expect. I sent the pen to you. He gave me a pen as well. This is actually made from a Louisville Slugger bat. He made it on his lathe, put the pen together. So you got number 2, I've got number 1, and I believe he took my name for this pen too. Not took my name, but he asked for names, and I said, how about the bullpen?
Oh, to name it?
Yeah, because he makes several different kinds of pens. So there's actually a name. Like I don't know what all the other ones that he makes.
Right,
I
like
know
you can name your batches of bourbon and such, you know.
Right. So he was wondering what he should name it, and I put out the name The Bullpen, and it is called The Bullpen. So if you would like,
that took me way too long to figure out, The Bullpen. Holy crap!
Yeah,
it didn't take you until that last time. Yep.
I was wondering. I was like, it must not be that good in Michael's book. And then
it wasn't clicking.
A charm.
click.
Oh, you can
watch this on YouTube, and you can watch it just clicking on my face. Yes.
Oh wow! But yes, as Michael mentioned, find us on YouTube. So first thoughts as you were taking notes, Michael. What do you think?
Do you have a mash bill for this guy?
So it's 3 different mash bills. You don't know what the juice is, so I'm going to say it is an X amount of. It's got to be 51% corn. That's for sure.
Corn,
it's bourbon,
rye, and malted barley.
Corn, rye, and malted barley. It did mention in the notes that they use high rye bourbon in part of it, the 10 and 15 year, I believe. So if it's coming from MGP as the high rye bourbon, that's going to be 60-36-4, I believe, is the MGP high rye right off the top of my head. I'm going to guess we're probably looking at 70%, 25%, and 5%. That would be just a guess, but who knows?
I'm not getting strong, overpowering notes on the nose right away. And so I'm getting a little sweetness. I want to say it's honey that I'm pulling out. but nothing's smacking me in the face aroma wise.
I've got a strong butterscotch and a dark fruit. Almost, and it's got a spicier smell to me. Like,
yes. So I think maybe that's hiding or masking the rest of it for me on the nose.
it could be.
Yeah, I think so.
A little more of that. It's more so creme brulee for me, like a sugary, like a buttery sugar.
Let me try your style of nostril to nostril here.
There's only one way to do it, man. Got to go nostril, nostril, and then double nostril.
1, 2, right, left, right.
Left, right.
I'm running out of breath though. Gotta take a second. Let me take a mouth coater and then catch my breath.
You know you're out of shape when you're losing your breath, smelling your whiskey. No, I'm glad you said it because I was like, I feel like light in the chest. Take a deep breath.
And count to 4.
Yeah, it's very. I got like I say butterscotch, but like a buttery sugar. I like the best way is creme brulee with butterscotch and a spicy or dark fruit was what I got.
On my right nostril, I definitely get that baking spice, cinnamon, creme brulee kind of.
Maybe even some nutmeg.
The left one, I get a drier aroma from it, and then both of them. Let's go, do it again. I just get the spice, the spice on both nostrils at the same time. So you've taken a little sip there. You ready to dive into it?
Yeah, I took that little coat. I thought it was warm right off the bat, like really warm up front. It gives you a very strong hug and coats the entire mouth. I think the viscosity is pretty good. It's buttery to me, and it's got a very warm feeling from the moment it enters your mouth. And do get a little bit of that Pop Roxy feel midway through. I got a very strong apple tone up front, like almost an apple juice.
I wonder if that's the spice going with the fruit with you, the strong spice.
Mm-hmm.
This is on the sweeter side of like the creme brulee you said. I wouldn't say I don't get butterscotch as much. I don't get a strong caramel, and I feel like the middleman there is creme brulee.
I got more caramely than on the nose. There's a little bit of oak on there.
A young oak, mature oak?
Moderate oak. Like a sophomore oak.
Like an 8-10 year oak.
Yeah. Yeah, probably 8-10 year oak. Yeah. Maybe that might be even more. I think I don't really want to age the oak, but
well, that's what they do. That's what they have a little bit in the picks there. You got the years is kind of how mature that
I wouldn't
oak
call
is.
it mature, but I wouldn't call it young either.
Yeah.
Perfect age oak. Yeah, I do have some fruitiness to it. It's still.
So does it lack anything for you?
It's not as sweet as I anticipated it to be. So that's what I kind of feel is the lacking. And I don't feel like I'm overblown with flavor. I think it's kind of up front. It doesn't change as much like Barrel Vantage did.
Barrel Vantage is a 5-tool player. He's got all the tools of it, the complexity. This maybe has max 3 tools for me. I feel it's if the you see the wave of and then a stock market crash at the end. I don't get a lingering flavor as I talk. It's not changing. It's just butter at the end.
Yeah, I get the butter more so from the middle towards the end. I'm talking now. I've had it's been about 30 seconds. There's still a pretty decent, and it's coming back to me the more I talk. I'd say it finishes a lot longer the more you talk and the more you get oxygen into your mouth. So start talking, Michael. Start moving your mouth. No. I get a pretty good burn on the back end. I think that may hide a little bit of the flavor. on the finish, where it's a little hot on the back end of it. I'd say it sips a little hotter than 114. Now 114's hot, but I feel like it's towards the back end. If it's more like the 118s, the 120s that we've had.
I don't know if I can agree with you there. I think I know what you're talking about on that burn. As I'm saying that, I took a fresh sip and now I'm talking, my tongue's just tingling.
Yeah, see what I mean?
The Pop Rocks.
Yeah,
Pop Rocks going, but that's all I'm getting is the Pop Rocks. I think it's got good flavor up front. I think this tastes like what you would expect bourbon to taste like. Would you say this is 114 proof? I would guess that's
114.6. Yeah,
probably about where I'd guess it to be. Maybe up there, like you said, 118, but no higher than that. But otherwise, flavor it's a good typical bourbon flavor.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not overwhelmed, like you said. It's not a 5-tool guy. If you want, I can jump right in, and I think I just gotta give this guy a bench player for me.
You're going to bench.
Yeah.
So Michael just gave this a rating of a bench. So if you're new to the podcast, we have a 5-tiered rating scale, and it's based off of baseball because why not? Top of the charts of Hall of Famer. There's only 1% of the big leaguers that make it into the game that go into the Hall of Fame. So you're rarely going to have that. We haven't rated one of those yet. Next is All-Star. You've got All-Stars on your team. And then Everyday Player is everybody has players in their lineup that may not be an All-Star, but it's good enough to be on your team day in and day out, and that's what we call one of those everyday shelfers, right? You're always going to have that bottle on your shelf. And Michael, can you explain what bench means? That's what you just rated this.
Yes. So barrel batch 34, bench player. A bench player is someone who has a great value to the team in certain situations.
Right.
And then so it's not a dig at it. It's just not something that you're gonna kill. Something that you would enjoy every day. It's maybe kind of, you can think of it as like a dessert bourbon. Maybe you go to dessert bourbon every now and then. You go to a honey bourbon every now and then.
Mm-hmm.
So it's something that you like to have on your shelf to change up the pace. You know, that starting pitcher's about to go through that lineup the third time, maybe it's good to get a change of pace in there and bring a reliever in.
Yeah, so, and that's what you rated this. And then last is a designate for assignment, DFA, that's cut from the team, basically. Get off my shelf, go to somebody else's house, or as Michael likes to do, clean his dishes. As far as my thoughts, I teeter back between an everyday player and a bench on this. I think that if you're looking for something that's got that bourbon note and a higher proof pour to it, right? This is right up your alley. If you're looking for a little more complexity, like I think we're used to from barrel craft spirits, I'd say maybe it's lacking a little bit in that. I would probably prefer 33 to 34, just off of my palate. Not by much. I'm going to go with the bench as well. I think this is a good bottle. I would buy it, but I wouldn't go to it all the time. I've been telling myself I'm backing off on the batch 33 because I don't want to drink the rest of it because I want to have some still. But This is one where I wouldn't probably say, no, don't drink it tonight because it's that good. I want to savor it. So that's why I'm going to give it a bench.
Yeah, still something you'd recommend to someone. Hey, I found this. Would you recommend it that it's good? You say, yeah, it's good.
Yeah, for sure. If somebody asked me to pick between this and something different, I would probably go say, grab this, put this in your cart and go to the front and go pay for it. Especially at $85, this is not bad. That's where a lot of these, this has got 15-year-old juice in it. So
I was just about to say that. Yep.
It's been around a while, 10 years and 15 years to the batch. I also 6 and 8 year bourbon, but I would say grab a bottle. I just don't think it's going to be one that you're pouring every day, so to speak.
Right. I think this is missing. If this was a little bit stronger oak for me, and then something a little bit more heavier fruit to finish, it's a two-tooled bourbon for me. But it's a classic bourbon taste.
Yeah.
But it's nothing that is very different than something else.
Right. It doesn't make it stand out as much as something else we've had, or it kind of matches a couple other things that you could find on the shelf.
Right, like 1792 sitting behind you.
Mm-hmm. Well, thank you again to Barrel Craft Spirits for sending over this sample of batch 34. I would buy a bottle if I find it. Whenever I find it, I'll buy a bottle. So thank you to Barrel for sending that over. And if you want to listen to other of our podcasts, you can find those on YouTube. We've got some of them that are just straight reviews and ratings, and there's others that are mixed with baseball as well, just like this episode is going to be. And this is where we transition over to the baseball portion with a trivia question. I found this one on Twitter the other day, Michael. Since the start of 2017, only 2 players in the major leagues have amassed more than 400 extra base hits. Who are they?
Since 2017. All right. I want extra base hits. I'm going to say Bryce Harper is one. And the other who's been and Jose Ramirez.
Are those your final answers?
Those are my final answers.
One of 2. And Jose Ramirez is one of the correct answers. He's actually the one who has the most at 428. I think what you're forgetting is Harper has missed a decent amount of time.
That was
not only this year, but in previous years. He had the thumb injury last year, right? Didn't he break his hand or something? And he also has dealt with when he hyperextended his knee at first base. Remember when he slipped on the rain game a couple years ago and hurt his knee? This was a name that surprised me. Nolan Arenado at 405. So 428 for Jose Ramirez, 405. That's coming into play tonight. Currently, it is April 26th, Wednesday at 9 o'clock Eastern time. So that's what the statistics
expecting that to change?
No, I was saying those numbers as of right now. Because someone may go look it up and be like, no, Jose Ramirez has 430. Well, he hit 2 doubles tonight. I don't know. But
4:26, 23, 8:11 p.m. Central Time.
Yes. Central Time.
Yeah, those 2 power hitting third basemen who have been great for a long time. Jose Ramirez would probably have more MVP wins if it was not for Mike Trout winning so many.
Or Aaron Judge, right?
Or Aaron Judge, right? Poor Jose Ramirez, he's put up consistent great seasons every year. I bet he's finished in the top 5.
Since like 2016.
Every year since 2017. Yeah, 2016.
Yeah. So those were the 2 answers, Jose Ramirez and Nolan Arenado. So as we twist and turn back into baseball, the Rays continue to be the hot name in baseball right now. They had that amazing start where they went undefeated, and then they have been undefeated at home until yesterday, where they lost their first game to the Astros, and I believe they lost tonight. Let me just double-check the scoreboard, but they were down 1-0 to the Astros as we began recording the podcast, and it does look like that they have lost again. So they are currently 20-5 after losing tonight.
So they've played 25 games.
Yes.
Right. Only 9 of those games are against teams who are currently above 500.
Correct.
So if you look at their hot start...
You can only play the teams on your schedule, though, right?
Right. But they went undefeated playing Detroit,
Nationals,
Washington, Oakland, and Boston, and their first.
And I believe they played Kansas City too, didn't they?
No, they didn't play Kansas City.
When
they finally faced a team that was maybe actually trying for the year in Toronto, is when they got their loss. And they went 1-2 right away against them.
And then they lost a game to the Reds, and now they've lost 2 in a row to the Astros. But still incredible. I believe that 14-0.
Right. They're 14-0 at home
is insane. Now they're 14-2 after losing to the Astros, but they continue to look good. They're hitting home runs every game too. Tonight, I believe, is the first game, unless they didn't do it last night, that they didn't have a home run to start the season. They had 23 straight games at least with a home run, which I believe broke the record as well.
I was just about to say, I think it did break the record.
So insane stuff out of there. They're hitting the ball. They're scoring. Their pitching has been great. They won by 4+ runs how many times before they finally lost? Right, they've been crushing teams. Yeah,
you gotta make sure you win those games against the crappy teams. and don't lose at home. That's a recipe for success right there.
And speaking of the recipe for success, a team out of nowhere, the Pittsburgh Pirates, is basically the team that has been on my mind for the last week. They went on a 7-game winning streak until they lost last night to the Dodgers. But as we speak right now, they're in the bottom of the 8th, and they're leading the Dodgers 8-1.
There we
So
go.
they're likely to go to 17-8 on the season. That would be good enough for first in the division because they're already atop the division over the Brewers, who are 16-9. But that team, who'd have thunk? And they've been crushing the ball, not just winning. They've been destroying the ball.
They are up there in runs scored. They're not in the bottom of runs scored either. But just to do it again, I'm going to poo-poo all over the Pittsburgh Pirates. Haven't played good teams. They've played 7 games against teams that are above 500. 7. Not counting tonight. I think I did my notes here. They played the Reds, the Red Sox, the White Sox, the Cardinals, the Rockies, and the Reds again. Now, again, like you said, the recipe for success: beat the crappy teams, win at home, and that's what the Pirates have done. You got to make sure you beat the bad teams. But the 2 good teams they've played, or actually just one, the Astros, they went 1-2 against.
You could say the Dodgers that they're 1-1 against.
So not to poo-poo all over, but they have only played. But hey, that's what it doesn't matter. They're winning, like you said. You can't control your schedule. You play it is, and they're in first place with the best record in the NL.
And
no one would have thought that.
No, and they have the 2nd hardest hit rate in baseball.
I actually had a comment not age very well at the very beginning of the year when they told I can't remember who it was that he made the opening day. Oh, it was Mitch Keller was going to start opening day. They did that video of him in the coach's office and like surprised him with it. And I made a comment on Instagram on the page that he was hoping the news was actually him being traded.
Well, he's pitching pretty well right now.
Someone commented 3 to 4 weeks later, but the Pirates have the best record in the NL. And I had to reply like, of course it's easy to say that now, but looking back, would you have put money on the Pirates to be in first place at the end of April? No.
I don't think anybody would.
Yeah, someone else commented, BNB Burns, this comment didn't age very well.
Yeah, sorry, buddy. But that's pretty funny. You gotta get called out when you make a mistake, right? Or you say something that looks dumb in hindsight, right? Like, who knows? Nobody would have picked the Pirates at this point. But it was good enough that they extended their manager. And also, big extension yesterday. Brian Reynolds, after asking for a trade in the offseason, signs an 8-year, $106.7 million deal with the Pittsburgh Pirates, which goes down as the largest contract ever given out by the team. They are the 4th last to give out a $100 million contract because there are still 3 teams who have yet to do it. And they're pretty much the 3 cheapest teams out there: the Oakland Athletics, the Kansas City Royals, and the Chicago White Sox. Jerry Reinsdorf, Benintendi's the highest amount that's ever been given out, and that was $75 million.
Just pathetic.
Yeah.
The White Sox had such a roster, and all they had to do is spend a little money. Pathetic.
Yep. Jerry Reinsdorf, man. But to put the focus back on the Pirates, I noticed you said that you think the Pirates got a steal in this deal.
Yeah, the superstars. Brian Reynolds is playing. He steals bases. He hits home runs. He hits for average. So he's. How many tools did I just? He plays center field, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I think he's at least 4.
He's in left field.
Okay, so he's got at least 3, maybe 4 tools there. I don't know what is. If you could. What's the 5 tools? Hit, power, run, arm, field.
Mm-hmm.
So I would say he's got minimum 3, max 4. You could even argue that he has 5 tools, and the Pirates are getting him for $13 million a year when Bryce Harper is getting 25, Jason Hayward's getting 23. Some guys like him are getting close to $30 million a year, and the Pirates are getting him for under $14 million a year. So I think it's the Pirates did well. I don't know if Brian wanted to just guarantee money in
And
his.
guarantees
There's nothing wrong with that.
Guarantees yourself a lot of money. He is going to make $106 million. So
nothing
hard to turn that down, right?
Right.
Especially when you've been hoping to move on and your team's finally doing well. And this beats the other guy that they extended last year, I believe. They extended Ke'Bryan Hayes for $70 million. I believe that was 7 years and $70 million. And then the other account, the highest that they've ever paid a player before that was Jason Kendall at 6 years, $60 million back in 2000, I believe. So, and the thing about the Pirates to me is they don't spend it on free agents. I believe Francisco Liriano at $38 million is the highest free agent contract that they've ever given out.
How did it? Just spend. You don't have to spend astronomical amount of money. Look at the Rays.
Right.
Rays. They don't. I mean, they don't spend money either. But still, if your window's open, spend it.
Right. And
so maybe now this is showing to other players that hey, Brian Reynolds decided to stay here. He wanted to compete.
And McCutchen coming back too probably helps, right? Like he wouldn't come back if he didn't like the organization, right?
Right.
He loved his time there, and he's having a great year. He's having a good renaissance year back. Because to be honest, towards the end of his time with Pittsburgh, when they got rid of him, I think they traded him to the Giants for Brian Reynolds. He was part of that deal.
For Brian Reynolds, that's right. It was Brian Reynolds and Kyle Crick.
So yeah, so he's basically paid for that trade of McCutchen, and you get him for another 8 years from here. I hope that they start spending money in other spots, right? You've got O'Neal Cruz, who you would hope that they, as a Pirates fan, you would hope that they're locking him up here shortly. I think you need some better pitching for sure. But, hey, you've got some good young players. The NL Central, to be honest, is not the biggest powerhouse, right? Look at the Cardinals. They've fallen off with Yachty leaving. You're going to have Waino leave next year. The Brewers, they're always how much more are they going to spend, right? And even towards the end of last year, they kind of fell off the Reds. And then the Cubs haven't been competitive until earlier this year, since the middle of 2021. So that division wants to be taken over. And I'm happy for Pirates fans because I do notice a lot more of them in the stands. And PNC Park, as I believe I mentioned on our Instagram Live, but also I believe I mentioned it here before, PNC Park is my favorite park and stadium that I've been to so far. So it's good to see people there.
And it's not like the Pirates are bad at developing guys. You look at they drafted and developed Garrett Cole, Tyler Glasnow, Mitch Keller's a good pitcher, Jameson Taillon.
It gets you every time.
Kevin Newman. I mean, they just don't know how to spend
Adam
money
Frazier
when it's at the right time.
Adam Frazier. Right?
They could have continued that Garrett Cole window instead of getting rid of him for, I think, Cole Tucker.
Cole Tucker and Joe Musgrove, I believe.
Right.
And JP Moran was part of that deal, too.
Just add more. Just spend some money. Garrett Cole wasn't walking out the door. They got rid of him before, with multi-years left. If I'm not mistaken. So hopefully Pirates just, this is a sign that, hey, Brian Reynolds is pulling the Tom Brady. He's getting his money, but he's doing a low AAV so that the Pirates can sign guys around him.
Yeah.
That's what Tom Brady was never. It was always restructuring his contract so that they could afford guys around him instead of being the highest paid quarterback in the NFL. And you can't afford guys around you. You're like, why don't you guys give me a wide receiver? So we're paying you $40 million a year to get.
Well, this has been the football portion of our Heroes and Barrels of Bourbon and Baseball podcast from Michael
Tom
Burns.
Brady's just the easiest example
I know.
I
totally know what you mean. But they also extended Derek Shelton, who was up at the end of this year. He hasn't had the best start to his career. I think he's like 100 games below 500 for a career record coming into this year. So it hasn't been the best start, but he's been doing pretty well so far, right? You can only beat the teams that are on your schedule. So congrats to the Pirates. Congrats to Brian Reynolds. I'd like to see them continue this a little longer, maybe through May, right? I've been posting on our Facebook account I think when these teams are competitive, it's good for baseball because I like parity. I don't like always seeing the same 3, 4, 5 teams always at the top because that's what makes it a little more boring, right? Like, oh, yep, here are the Dodgers again. But the Padres spending money, or the Pirates at the top, or the Baltimore Orioles coming back, or even when the A's were good a couple years ago, Seattle last year, right? And the Blue Jays always seemed to be the doormat for most of my lifetime, at least. Early 90s, They won the World Series, but it's fun to see other teams have success. And even though the Pirates are in the Cubs division, I'm excited for the Pirates because it's fun to see them competitive.
I'd rather see like it was 2015 where there was 3 teams that made the playoffs and they all had 97 plus wins. And that was a great playoff.
Fun.
It was so much more like competitive from a Cubs fan standpoint, just like the Mets, the Phillies, the Braves. That's what it was.
Right.
Now it's the Dodgers, the Padres, and it's been
the Diamondbacks,
the Giants back and forth.
And the Diamondbacks this year, right? Like they're top of the charts
this year, right?
So good for baseball when there's that kind of parity, especially when it's the teams that have been at the bottom for so long, like the Diamondbacks and the Pirates and the Orioles, to finally be jumping up. Even you could say this year the Texas Rangers, right? Until they just got swept by the Reds, they were one of the hottest teams in baseball. They just got swept by the Reds, but they were like 16-7 coming into this week or something along those lines, and at the top of that division. And I still think they lead that division, even though they lost. They're 14-10, so they were 14-7 coming into the week.
They'd won 6 of their last 7 until that sweep.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and they got walked off twice by the Reds, so kind of fluky, right? But you've got to beat those teams, even though it was on the road here in Cincinnati. But Adolis Garcia had a day. Did you see what he did on Saturday?
I saw at least the minimum I saw, he did hit 3 home runs.
3 home runs and 2 doubles. So he did the same thing Chris Bryant did, with Bryant being the first one to do it, right? The full house with the doubles and the home runs with 3 home runs. He knocked in 8, and he also just had a day. He was the first one to do it in the American League.
Really?
Yeah.
I didn't know that was such a feat.
Yeah. 18 total bases because of the 3 home runs and the doubles. So
Chris Bryant was the first ever to do it?
Mm-hmm.
Really? I didn't know that.
Against the Reds. I think that was 2016.
Yep. It was the Reds.
I know it was the Reds in Cincinnati.
Great American.
Yeah.
Yep.
But I remember
everyone likes hitting in Great American.
What's that? Anybody can hit there?
No, I said everybody loves to hit a Great American.
Except the Reds players, apparently. So,
except the Reds pitchers.
Yeah, that too. But Adolis Garcia, the Rangers had been a nice story, as I mentioned, up until this sweep. Garcia won AL Player of the Week. He had 4 home runs. He had an average of 400. Dude had himself a week last week.
Right. And how about the next guy on the NL side who had a week? In Max Muncy.
Not only did he have a week, he had a series. The series he had versus the Cubs here at Wrigley was ridiculous. He hit 4 bombs. He hit a home run every game.
Is he leading?
No, he didn't home run. He didn't hit a home run in game 2, but he hit a home run. He hit 4 home runs. He's leading the league at least, I think, right? Isn't he?
Yes. Mm-hmm. That's what I'd say. He was leading the league at one point.
Yeah, he's got 11 home runs. Alonso's got 10 in second.
Who's tied with him at 10 though?
Nobody.
Oh, I thought it was Patrick. I thought it was Pete Wizzy.
Wisdom and Devers are both at 9 in third, and then Rudy Tellez in 5th with 8.
So what's funny about Rowdy is he's hit all his home runs against lefties.
And he's a lefty.
He's hitless against righties.
That's insane.
Hitless. And I could be flip-flopping lefty-righty there, but he's got 7 home runs against one hand, 0 hits against the other in 9 games.
That's crazy. So Adolis, Player of the Week, he batted 400. He had 4 home runs. He drove in 14 last week, and he had 8 runs, while Max Muncy wins NL Player of the Week with a batting average of 389, 5 bombs. He didn't hit as many he didn't knock in as many, only 7, so that's half of what Adolis drove in. But he walked 9 times. Walked.
You know what? You know what's pathetic is a guy in my fantasy league had both those guys and he still lost that week.
Because the rest of his team is probably trash. But nonetheless,
Typical.
Speaking of Max Muncy, before this week, you know what he did?
I know he was destroying the San Francisco Giants
He was doing
in
that.
San Francisco.
He was doing that. But not only did he do that, he had a baby. And he is one of 4 Dodgers who have gone on the paternity list in the last week and a half. Gratterall, some Evans guy, I think, and Mookie Betts.
Yep.
And then Cody Bellinger, who was also on the Dodgers last year, just went on paternity list. 9 months ago was the All-Star break, Michael. Sounds like the Dodgers had a little bit of themselves a sex session.
That's not a coincidence. They had to have something going on in the clubhouse, like
First one to get
I don't
pregnant
even
or
know.
something. A bet. Do you think there was a bet in the clubhouse?
The first one to get pregnant. No, who?
Yeah.
I don't even know. The best tweet I saw was last year at the All-Star break last year. Someone gave an oral speech for the All-Star break, and someone said, "I don't think it was oral."
Are we going to have to cut that out of the podcast? Brandon marks down, this one is not for kids. Not for kids. Need to make sure that on YouTube is marked.
Yeah,
That's
I laughed pretty
incredible.
hard at that.
Oh, boy. Well,
So
speaking
next
of that,
on the agenda, Brandon.
yes, next on the agenda. No, before I jump into that, another thing I did want to point out with the Pirates, did you see
with the
player,
Pirates.
Drew Maggi, who just got called up, 13-year career in the minors,
Oh, did you just get that
1,154
notification
games.
too?
But well, I also forgot to put it on our agenda. But yes, he finally made his big league appearance at 33 years old. Can you imagine like what that has to feel like? That's my age. That's me basically getting called up after playing in the minors for the last 13
fact that he
years.
didn't give up, because how hard? I mean,
Right.
minor leagues riding the buses is no great show, you know.
Oh yeah, it's no
So-
easy feat, and to do that for 13 years. But cheers to him. I'm going to dedicate this pour and this glass that I still have a little bit of whiskey left in. Cheers to you, Drew. Congrats on getting called up. Did you see the video of him getting called up in the locker
No,
room?
you think it was him hoping to get traded so he'd be called up, or
No, the coach was talking about how he loves getting the chance to coach players and also help bring them up to the majors. And he goes, the first person that I get to tell is Drew. And like the dude just lost it, crying at his
bet.
locker.
Oh, absolutely.
And
The love of the game.
awesome. And how can you not be romantic about baseball, right? It sounds like the Dodgers were pretty romantic 9 months ago.
Heyo.
Heyo.
Cheers.
Speaking of the Dodgers, they just left Chicago, but the Chicago Cubs have a very good pitcher on their team, and I would call him towards the top of the charts. Justin Steele last night with another 5 1/3 innings of shutout baseball. He's had a start to the season, which is fantastic, but it doesn't just go to the start of the season. It goes all the way to last year at the All-Star break. He's had a
Right.
1.08 ERA since then. And then also, if you go back to July 1st, he leads all qualified starters within the ERA. He's at 1.39, I believe. And that tops Justin Verlander. That tops Clayton Kershaw, Shohei Ohtani. Insane stuff.
Are you telling me the Cubs actually developed a pitcher?
Yes, I'm telling you, the Cubs actually developed a pitcher.
Yeah, that guy. And you said dating back to July 1st, 1.39 ERA.
Yeah.
Now his ERA right now is 1.19, and his
Yeah.
WHIP is 0.89.
Mm-hmm. It's been
Dude
insane.
is shoving. Dude is shoving.
Yeah, he's had an incredible 6 or 8 month stretch since he really I think he was injured early last year, or I know they shut him down at the end of the year, didn't they?
I can't say with confidence because I wouldn't doubt it because the Cubs weren't trying last year.
Right.
But, gosh, Brandon, I got something on my hands here. It just won't come off.
And
Oh. It's just like Max Scherzer. our next topic here, the guy got suspended for 10 games for
Yeah.
sticky stuff.
So, what do you think? Like, do you think he had sticky stuff?
I
Do you
don't
think?
think I don't so from what I've seen in the talks, it wasn't spider tack or anything, but he found a new form of sticky that is in a way he says it was just rosin. I've just used a lot of sweat and rosin.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the story actually coming out now is if you put rubbing alcohol on your hands and then rosin, it forms much stickier.
Mm-hmm. So, do you have
Sticky.
rosin, Michael? Do you have rosin?
No, that was
Oh,
just a second, a leeway there, Brandon, into the next player there. But the only thing I'll give the Serger, of course, hey, you're always if you're not trying to look for the next advantage,
mm-hmm.
are you
If
really
you ain't
trying to
cheating, you
win?
ain't trying, right?
Well, not cheating, but if you're not like the Cubs did, they drafted, they tanked. They were one of the guys who tanked in early 2010s.
Yeah,
And I don't like seeing your reaction there because I know you're ahead of me in the Cubs game.
yeah,
As Tatis here takes a pitch and the
yeah.
Padres are going to take the lead.
Yep, 4-3 at the time of this recording. But yeah, I mean, you're looking for that advantage. Maybe Joe Girardi was onto something last year when he was the one who went after Scherzer, I think, earlier in the year before he got fired. And Scherzer and him had words back and forth while they were playing each other.
I won't say too much that it's Scherzer because it's only three players have ever been caught with sticky substance and been ejected, and they've all been by the same umpire,
Phil Cuzzy.
Phil Cuzzy. So
You
who
know
knows
why?
if it's
You know why?
Phil? Why?
It's because he's jealous.
He's jealous? Why is he jealous?
I was making a joke on his name. Man, your wheels in your head are not turning today. I
Who's
said
jealous? Phil Cuzzy?
it's because he's jealous.
Oh, okay. Okay. I'll give it to you there. That was there.
Yep.
But
As he
so
see
is
your
it
wheels
is
today.
it
Your wheels.
is it Cuzzy? Maybe I was looking on the Phil part more.
Oh.
But so is it Phil being too tough on pitchers? Like, hey, maybe it was just rosin and sweat, or maybe it was rubbing alcohol and sweat. But that's not breaking the rules of going to
Mm-mm.
water, pouring alcohol, cleaning
Right.
your hands with something.
Well, they told him to go and wash his hands. So what if he washed it with the rubbing alcohol?
Right. That's a cleanser. In a
Well,
way.
that's how you
Kills
would
all
get
germs on your
sticky
hands.
stuff off your hands, theoretically, right?
Right.
Well,
You want to
so
burn it all off. So I'm
yes,
not marking Serger cheater right here.
right.
I'm saying there might need to be a clarification here. Hey, if that's the case, they need to go write a rule. It says before pitchers take the mound, they must wash their hands with Dawn soap that saves the ducks, and then walk out there. Otherwise,
Soap.
there's
That's in
gonna
the
be
rule
it's
book.
always going to be something.
Yeah,
Right.
there's always
Pitchers
going to be
must
something.
wash their hands with
Yeah.
X before going out there. So I'm not going to mark Serger there. It's not bad.
He did get a 10-game suspension. A lot of people are like, that's lofty. Well, that's basically a 2-game suspension for a starter because every 5th day would be a start. So he misses 2 games. It would be like a position player getting a 2-game suspension in this case. So I think that probably fits. I don't know about the other 2 pitchers who got ejected, if they got suspended or what their suspensions were, but you normally can give a relief pitcher a little bit lower of a suspension because they're not like a starter and they pitch potentially back-to-back days or every 3 days or every 2 days. So Max Scherzer suspended for 10 games. Earlier this year when we were talking, I know we had talked about the Mariners and their outfield, and there was a guy we talked about, Jared Kelenic, who had a rough start to his career, right? Wasn't he the number 1 prospect in baseball when they brought him up, or was he in the top?
He wasn't number 1,
No,
but he was
wasn't
in the
number
top
1.
3, I want to say.
Top 3. But
Yes.
he's having a hell of a start to the year. His numbers, 7 home runs. He's batting .342 with 14 RBIs. He's stolen 3 bases. He's got an OPS right now of 1.121, and he's already amassed a 1.2 WAR in 75 at bats. Is this Jarred Kelenic? Is this the guy? Is this what we should expect going forward?
I'm trying to hold all reactions to stuff till the month of May, but it sure looks like Jarred Kelenic is finally Jarred Kelenic that the Mariners thought they were getting 2 years ago.
Mm-hmm. He came up
and
as a
really,
rookie, yeah.
Yeah, it's really unfortunate because I did draft him in fantasy, and in the first week, he had a 50% strikeout rate in the first week.
Yeah.
So the dude was batting atrocious the first week. And so that says even more to what he's been doing week 2, 3, and 4.
Yep. He turned it around right before the Cubs series is when he was really starting to put the bat on the ball, and he hit that monster home run at Wrigley to center field. Did you see where that ball left? No,
yeah, that was a Schwarber bomb.
Did you see the other one? He hit 2. He hit 1 on the scoreboard, but did you see the one he hit to center field?
No.
It went just below the scoreboard. 482 feet, which is the longest ever
482?
in StatCast era. Yeah. Insane.
Unreal. That is.
Yeah.
That's a bomb.
So to put this in perspective, he's got 7 home runs this year in 21 games. He played 54 games last year, and he hit 7 home runs. He played 93 games in 2021. He hit 14 home runs, but both of those years he hit under 200. He hit 141 last year, and he hit 181 in his rookie year. He's striking out 20 times out of those 81 plate appearances, so he strikes out about 1 in 4 plate appearances. That's 1 in 3.5 at bats because he's batted 73 times. He's still striking out, but he's finally hitting for power. His OPS last year was 534. I think this probably isn't.
His slugging percentage is over that.
Yeah, his slugging percentage is 726 right now. And that leads the league along with his OPS plus and his OPS so far through the first 21 games that he's played.
That's hot.
That's good to see. Part of Seattle hasn't been playing well. Their pitching has been meh outside of Castillo, but at least he's starting to come around. That would be good news for the Seattle Mariners, right? If he's going to be that way, if Julio's going to be him, if your players that have been who they've been the last couple of weeks and the last couple of years, Eugenio, I think, who else? The lefty, Jesse Winker. You've got some guys on that team. Ty France, that Seattle Mariners
Julio's, that outfield, Julio, Teoscar.
Yeah.
And Jarred could be arguably one of the best outfielders in the game, hitting wise.
Yeah, for sure.
Unfortunately, Julio, who had an MVP type rookie of the year last year, is having a little bit of a sophomore slump to start the year. He's only hitting 235, striking out 25% of the time, which isn't terrible in today's game. 25%, but
not bad. You would hope
you'd like
to
to see the average higher.
Right, for sure. And like you said just a couple minutes ago, hard to look at statistics through the first couple of weeks of April. There's a lot of noise there. Small sample size, especially cold weather. And that's a Cubs thing, too, is the Cubs have hit so well this year to start the year, and they haven't even made it to their warmer summer months that they normally start to put the ball in the stands. So
Chicago has warm summer months or
months. Yeah. Oh, have you July, August, and September in Chicago can get hot. Even late June, man. Global warming, but we're not going to get into that.
Late June.
We're not going to get into that. But yeah, good for Kelenic. I'd like to continue to see him do this over the next couple of weeks and really live up to the guy that he was built.
You hate to see
right?
top touted guys fall flat like he did his first 2 years. You like to see these guys break out like he is. That's great.
Yeah. And speaking of great, maybe incredible, maybe a Hall of Famer, Clayton Kershaw. He's got 201 wins now, but he won his 200th game, I think, immediately after our podcast last week. So he's at 200 wins, which made me question, he's only 200. So off of the 200 win mark, I don't think he's a Hall of Famer, right? Because he's not in the 300 win club. He's not up there. But then you look at the rest of his statistics, and Boog Shambi asked on the Sunday broadcast while he was playing and pitching, Do you think? Oh, he said he's a first ballot Hall of Famer, and I was just like, is he a first ballot Hall of Famer? I took a step back for a second. What do you think? Like right off the bat, first ballot Hall of Famer, go.
Knowing, he was one of the best pitchers of our generation. Just knowing that year in year out, he was Cy Young candidate.
Yep.
I would immediately think yes without even looking at the numbers.
The numbers are insane outside of the wins.
I just listed his stats and said, hey, without looking at his stats, I would. And go.
Yeah. So without looking at his stats, you say he is in. The only thing that I questioned was the wins, right? Like the pitcher win has not been what it used to be over the last decade or so because of bullpens, because of pitch counts and all of that. But I looked at his statistics. Dude is a beast. He's got 15 complete game shutouts in his career, which
not just complete games.
Complete game shutouts. 25 complete games. In 2,612 innings, he has struck out 2,839. So he's almost to 3,000 strikeouts, which is kind of a benchmark. And he's not likely. I doubt he gets to it this year because that would mean he has to strike out another 170, and he hasn't done that. That would mean he's had 200 strikeouts. He hasn't done that since 2017. But
he also hasn't been healthy really since 2017 with the back.
Right.
So I don't think it's unreal for him to get 200 strikeouts.
But is he going to stay healthy? He did pitch 228 games in 2019, but he hasn't pitched more than 22 since. He's pitched 5 this year. I would expect some time on the DL for him. Back issues always pop up. I don't think he gets to 3,000 this year, but besides the point, his career whip, Michael, not just season, career is 1.000.
0-0. There it is.
Yes.
That's the benchmark right there. 1.0 whip. Anything near 1 is fantastic.
Right, but for a career, a 16-year
How many
career,
innings pitched does he have in career?
2,600.
And he has almost he's got a great K rate.
He's striking out more than 9 per 9, and he's only walked, I believe, 639 at the 634. He's got 201 wins to 88 losses. At career ERA is 2.48, 2.48 for an ERA. He is, I believe, it's 8-time All-Star, 3-time Cy Young. And he won the MVP in 2014, I believe. He won the MVP. So not only did he win the Cy Young, but he won the freaking MVP.
He's got my vote.
Yeah, he's got a career strikeout of 9.8 per 9. So basically 10 strikeouts per 9 innings, which is insane.
Yep.
He'd get my vote as well.
Looking through the stats there, he's got my vote. After what some of...
He could retire now.
Dump on some guys. Yeah, he could retire now. I'm not trying to dump on some guys who've gotten in recently, but Clayton Kershaw, based on some other guys who've gotten in, deserved it.
Oh, for sure. So, first ballot Hall of Famer?
Yes.
Yep, I agree as well. He's been the best pitcher of our era. Him and probably Verlander, right? Between those two.
We won't get into Kershaw's playoff record, though, in stats.
Well, he's won a World Series. And you don't get elected by your playoff stats. You shouldn't be, right? You shouldn't be.
No.
But, yeah. Also, another statistic I saw, Boog Shambe was talking about it during the Cubs broadcast. He, in his career, has had 12 seasons of a sub-3 ERA.
Even through the juice ball era.
Yes.
He's pitched.
Put that again in perspective. 12 seasons of a sub-3 ERA. That's only been done by 2 other people, Roger Clemens and Tom Seaver, since 1913. So you had to have a minimum of 10 starts in each season. He's at 5 starts right now. He's at a sub-3 ERA. If he continues that this year, he'll be the only one to ever make it to 13 seasons of that. So, yes, first ballot Hall of Famer.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, insane. I knew he was great. I knew he was the best for a long time, but I didn't realize how great. Because you hear 201 wins, and you would think Maddox and Glavine and all those pitchers that got 300 plus, right? So, why isn't he there? Partially the injuries, but I think also
different game.
Yeah, it is a different game. You're getting pulled earlier. You're not allowed to stay deeper into games. How many of those games maybe do you think he pitched where he left in the 7th inning and it was tied 0-0 or 1-2 or 2-1, where he was down and they came back, right?
It's the analytical world now where you don't see sacrifice bunts, you don't see the stolen bases until this year because analytically it didn't make sense.
Right. So Clayton Kershaw pitches for the Dodgers. They're a California team. Speaking of California teams, did you see the statistic going into this weekend about the teams in California?
They were all below 500?
Yeah, until the Dodgers beat the Cubs on Sunday, they were all below 500. All 5 teams. The Giants.
Good riddance.
Good riddance. The Giants, the Padres, the Athletics, the Angels, and the Dodgers. But they... Ooh, get out, Nico. Get out. And it was out. It was just foul.
Wow.
It looked like he was going to hit a home run. So we're doing play-by-play as you're listening. But so the California teams had been underperforming. The Padres started to pick it up as of late. The Dodgers have picked it up as of late. But still, they're nowhere near the top of that division. That's dominated by the Diamondbacks, who are not in California. But another California team, the Oakland A's. The big news, if you haven't seen it already, not only are they off to a horrid start, but they also plan to move to Las Vegas, I believe by 2027 is what I read. And they're likely going to start out at, well, they said they might even move before that and play in the AAA team facilities.
Oh.
And I actually saw something today that was kind of funny and actually could make sense. Why doesn't the minor league team in Vegas and the Oakland baseball team in Oakland just flip-flop and let Oakland play in Vegas and the AAA team play in Oakland?
They'd probably pull enough crowd in Las Vegas,
right,
you know.
Right. But it's tough for me because it's always been the Oakland A's for me, for you as well, right? We didn't see the Philadelphia A's. You asked last night on Instagram Live if they'd change the Athletics. I don't think so. I think they'll be the Las Vegas Athletics. I mean, they could change their name. I just think since they traveled from Philadelphia as the Athletics to Oakland, you just keep that name with the franchise. What do you think?
I think so. Yeah, they're not an expansion team, so why would you change the name? It's still the same team moving. Like the Florida Marlins changed it to Miami Marlins with their new stadium. They changed to Miami, or was that before that?
I think it was before. It was right around the same time. I think they were the Miami Marlins before they moved into the new stadium, but you'd have to double check that.
Right. I think that's the only city. I mean, of course, the Angels, Anaheim to Los Angeles.
The Montreal Expos became the Washington Nationals.
Okay, so that is a difference there. The team did move, and they changed name. So I think, for a history standpoint, you'd want to change for what's going on in the world right now politically and everything. Who knows what this team name would be allowed to be? It would have to be so generic. And athletics are very generic, so there you go. That's probably what would get the #1 vote anyways.
Yeah, I think they should stay the A's, the Vegas A's, right? You can also almost say the A's is the Aces, right? If you wanted to go short.
I like the Aces.
I think that's what the basketball team is, I think. The women's basketball team. I think they're the Vegas Aces.
I saw something about the Las Vegas Diamonds or something like that.
That wouldn't be bad, but I still think the Athletics, for history perspective and just like nostalgia, they're the A's.
Now, you mentioned the A's were off to a horrid start.
Yes.
Those A's have played good teams. Like I said, how the Pirates have played bad teams, Oakland has played good teams. As I went through and was looking at doing like a power ranking of teams, Oakland was on every single good team. That they've played every good team.
Yeah, they have gotten a rough schedule.
Yes. And so
But they've also given up 193 runs.
Yeah, well, when you trade away anybody that is good at baseball,
right? And that's the other thing is I'm upset that they're moving to Vegas more so because of the owner. And did you see what the Clown said? And Clown, sorry, I have to clarify. Rob Manfred, what he said he kind of blamed the Oakland fans because of this. He said we've tried everything.
For 20 years. They've been since this owner took over, I think 20 years ago. He basically been trying to get them, purposely not investing money to get them to move. I think for 20 years he's been trying to get them to move.
So what you're saying is this is just like the movie Major League, where she's trying to get the team to fail. Yeah. So do you know what his net worth is? It's like $2.2 billion, and he has the lowest payroll in the game. He has not done anything.
Where does that compare? $2.2 billion to like?
I think it was 10th on the list.
Franchises.
I think it was 10th on the list.
He's up there.
Yeah, amongst billionaires in the game. But also up there is Jerry Reinsdorf, and the owner of the Tampa Bay Rays is up there too, I believe. He doesn't spend money. They don't pull in, but they don't put high-paid product on the field. They don't put those big money guys out there. But I'm going to get off myself.
At least keep their guys. They come up, they develop them, and they keep them. The A's develop for other teams.
Well, and it's cyclical too. They have 3 or 4 good years, and then they fall off for 3 or 4 years, and then they build it back up. Billy Beane has done an incredible job over the last 20 years with what he's been handed, right? Like, if you can't spend money, that's what the movie Moneyball was all about, right?
It's what you have to do. It's what you have to. One of my favorite movies that you've been in, that Moneyball.
So good.
I mean,
it's so good.
I actually haven't watched it yet this year. I usually watch it like opening week, and I'm gonna have to put it on right here after this Cubs game.
Yeah, it's one of my favorite go-tos. I think it's fantastic. The Scott Hatteberg with Chris Pratt, like you go back and like, oh, that was Chris Pratt. But
right,
a great movie there. But speaking of great, we're going to do something different this week. We're going to give our top 10 rankings of teams where we think they rank power rankings wise. So, Michael, do you have your list of your top 10? How do you want to do this? Do you want to go 1-1, 2-2? Do you want to go your 10, my 10?
No, let's go side by side, because I think we'll have some similar. Well, let's just say who's no, I was gonna say who's in your top 10, but then you're just gonna rank it. Looking at the list, I think we both have the same 1 and 2.
Tampa and Atlanta.
Right, and corresponding spots, number 1, number 2. You can't. How could you argue that the Rays aren't the number 1 team in baseball?
Right, they're 20-5. Well, 20-4 coming into the rankings, but 20-5. They've been the best team statistically, and as you mentioned, they played some lower end teams, but you cannot not put them at the top of the list. And then Atlanta, tied for the best record in the NL. What I thought was very intriguing, they are 500 at home. They're 6-6 at home, but on the road they're 10-2. Usually those numbers will be flip flopped. So you would expect them to really pick it up at home here shortly. I think they are the class of the NL.
The Braves have only played 5 games against opponents above 500, and they're 2-3.
And they're 2-3. So that means that
2-3. And the Astros.
But they played the Phillies, right? Who is a tough matchup in their division, right? Like a divisional opponent, I always kind of, no matter what the record, a divisional opponent, I would consider in my mind is a better team than what their record says, just because of the rivalry within the divisions, right? Especially
how important the games are,
right?
In the playoffs.
So the Braves.
So how did when you
go ahead?
I was gonna say your rankings. Is this like the top 10 teams you think in baseball, or the 10 hottest teams this week?
The 10 best teams currently on the field, playing the best baseball.
Playing the best baseball. I think that's the key
baseball
part of
right
rankings.
now. Ranking the teams as if this continued for the rest of the year, where would they rank in my mind, power rankings wise? That's how I have this ranked. So my third.
It's important to hear. It's not who we think are the best teams, because we could have the teams, a good team who's not doing well could fall in the power rankings.
Right. Like the Phillies technically aren't in my top 10, but that doesn't mean that by the end of the year they aren't one of the top 10.
That doesn't mean
teams.
You think they're a poopy team.
Right.
They're just not playing well at the time.
Right. They're not living up to their expectations. And I think expectations may have played a little bit into this, right? Like the Braves are expected to be great. The Rays weren't expected to be the best team in baseball the way that they've come out and all hot like that. But my third team is the Milwaukee Brewers. They're 16-9 coming into play tonight. Their pitching is fantastic. or at least their starting pitching is fantastic. I don't know too much about their bullpen outside of Trevor Williams, but they've had a very good start to the year. They've been pretty dominant at 16-9. Their run differential is plus 28. I think overall, talent-wise, top to bottom, they did just lose Garrett Mitchell, didn't they?
They did lose Garrett Mitchell, right?
Is he out for the whole year?
He's out for I think for most of the year, till September.
So that's probably going to knock them down the list at some point over the next couple of weeks. But
they've got outfielders ready to go, though. They had a crowded outfield of prospects.
Who's your third team?
So I don't have Milwaukee as my third team. Milwaukee is in my top 10 at 10.
At 10, okay.
At 10. Right now, my number 3 team is the Toronto Blue Jays, who are coming into today, not into tonight, with a 4-game winning streak. They are tied for second place in the AL East.
They played earlier today.
Yeah. Okay. I don't know if I got that win in there or not. So they could be 5, or they could have
16-9 at 4 games straight. Yeah, they won earlier this afternoon against the White Sox.
So they have their pitching has also gotten. Evan Gosman had a great outing all of a sudden, so maybe that run differential will start increasing a little bit more. But right now, the Blue Jays are the number 3 team for me, playing good teams. They're 1-2 against the Rays. I'm sorry, they're 2-1 against the Rays on a 4-game win streak. Right. So they're my number 3.
I have the Blue Jays in there. So I originally had them at 4th, but I dropped them down to 6th. They are my 6th team on the list. Excuse me, let me write that down.
They're at 6 for you?
Yeah, they're at 6 for me because their run differential. Their pitching hasn't been great. Manoah, your Cy Young candidate, hasn't been great. He's had a rough start, so has Gosman. Their run differential was the one thing that scared me just because it was negative for a little bit, and they were still winning baseball games. I still think they're probably going to win that division. In my mind, their offense has been insane too, right? Like they're hitting the ball. You had Chapman, Guerrero, and Bichette, I think, all leading the league in hits as of last week. I'm sure that's gone down a little bit, but they just swept the White Sox.
Fell back to earth a little bit, but still.
Yeah. They're my 6th team on the list. My 4th team is actually the New York Mets. They are just behind the Braves until today. They're now 14-10, so they're 2 games back, but they were neck and neck with the Braves. They're pitching without Scherzer. I don't think Verlander's thrown a pitch yet this year. Quintana's hurt, and also Carlos Carrasco is hurt. So 4 of their top 5 starters currently are not in the rotation.
Yeah, that says a lot there. I mean, who's pitching? Only guy I can think of is Kodai Senga. Is it Taijuan Walker, or did he left?
He went to the Phillies, didn't he?
Yeah, because the Mets got Senga. The Cubs were looking at Taillon, Senga, or Walker, and
so David Peterson, Tyler McGill, Joey Lucchesi, and Jose Butto. I'm gonna guess it's with an O at the end.
So just wait for the Mets to actually get Verlander back, and you're gonna see that run differential take off. That runs against is gonna go lower as that run scored. They just got Brett Beatty called up, a slugging third baseman who they're not playing every day. Why would you call him up and not play him every day? He's sitting half the games. I don't get it, but I digress.
So who's 4th on your list?
I have the Mets as well as 4th. They're they are on a 3-game losing streak, but they're playing good teams. They're 7-6 against teams above 500. 6-4 in their last 10. So winning. They're on a winning trend right now. So then number 5, I have the San Diego Padres.
So the Padres.
I'm listing the 3rd place team before the 1st and 2nd place team in the NL West. But the Padres have been playing good teams. They've played 21 games against teams against 500.
Or better.
Or against 500 teams or 500 or better, right? And they did that without Tatis. They did that all without Joe Musgrove, and both those guys are back this week.
Yeah, and Tatis is who just put them up ahead of the Cubs, and looks like right now as they head to the top of the ninth, that they may squeak this out. It's 4-3 heading to the top of the ninth in Chicago. My team in fifth place is from that division, but it is the Los Angeles Dodgers. I think that the Dodgers are the most talented team in that division right now. Well, not most talented team in the division. Let me rephrase that, because I did pick the Padres earlier in the year. I do think that the Dodgers have been dealt a little bit of a difficult hand with the paternity leave. They haven't had their full team together, right? They've had guys in and out of the lineup because of that. They've lost 2 of 3 from the Cubs in the first weekend, and then they just won 3 of 4. So they're starting to turn it around. They are currently playing the Pirates. They're probably going to lose that game, but they have won 4 out of 5 coming in today, 5 out of 6 coming into today. They've turned it around a little bit better than where they were. I think that roster is just, they're always replacing people with people. This Outman guy,
where did he come from?
The Dodgers.
And now all of a sudden, Mookie Betts is playing shortstop for the first time in his career?
What? Yeah, James Outman batting .316 with 7 bombs, 19 RBIs. I saw this team in person. We'll talk about that here in a minute. But who is your 6th team, Michael?
6, I've got the Houston Astros. They came in and swept the Braves this weekend.
And they just won 2 in a
their
row
run
against
differential.
The Rays.
Yeah, they've won 7 of their last 10 on a 2-game winning streak, run differential of 28, and they've played 18 games against teams above 500.
Yeah.
So I think the Astros are still, even without Jose Altuve, are playing great ball. Hunter Brown is coming out with those Justin Verlander mechanics and shoving for him.
Yep. And so my 7th team is...
Your 6?
My 6 was Toronto, so my 7th team is Houston, for all the same reasons that you just said. Okay. They won the World Series. They're starting to play better baseball. Jose Abreu's starting to hit the ball. Garcia's pitching very well. They just won 5 in a row against the 2 best teams on our list. Some Houston Astros fans are probably going to be mad at us. We just won 5 in a row against your number 1s and your number 2s on our list, right? But I don't think you could argue with us on 1 and 2.
They didn't beat the bad teams. To start the year, they went 1-1 against the White Sox, 1-2 against Detroit, 1-2 against Minnesota, and then in the division went 1-2 against Texas. So maybe they're turning it around because their first 3 series they lost or tied. So maybe Houston is, at least they're beating the good teams and losing against the bad. Not a good recipe for success.
Right. Who's your 7th team?
But so 7th is, within the same division, is the Texas Rangers, who I wanted to rank higher, but they are on a 3-game losing streak.
And they just got swept by the Reds, and that's why I left them off my top 10.
Yes. But prior to that, they did play good. They were playing good baseball. 3-0 against Kansas City, 2-1 against Oakland, 2-1 against Houston. They have played 9 games against teams above 500. But their run differential actually is 2nd place in the AL right now.
And that was after losing 3 games in a row, too. Their run differential is plus 56.
They are 3 runs behind the Tampa Bay Rays for most in MLB.
Total runs scored.
Jacob deGrom.
Yeah.
Total runs scored. They just need more Jacob deGrom starts.
Yes. I did not put them in the top 10. I have Minnesota as my 8th team on the list. The Twins have had incredible pitching so far. They've got young players in the league, young players in the lineup that have been producing. You've got Carlos Correa. That was my pick to win the division. Right now they're up on the Guardians by 2 games. I think that they've been the class of that division. They've played some really good baseball as of late. As you mentioned, they beat the Astros in 3 games. They went 2-1. They did just beat the Yankees 2 in a row until today. They lost 12-6, but they've been playing very good baseball as of late.
You said they're the class of the division. They're the only team in the division. No one else is above 500.
Right. Well, the Guardians is who you picked. So I'm saying that Guardians team is still good, but I think right now the Twins are the class of that division.
Right. Well, you look at the rest of that division.
Oh, it's trash.
Detroit, White Sox, and Kansas City. Looking through this and comparing rankings, the good teams have only been playing bad teams. Good teams have not been, more often than not, have not been playing each other.
Right.
So the Detroit, White Sox, and Kansas City have played almost 20 games against teams 500 or better. Those three teams.
Yeah, and
Oakland has played 21 games against teams.
The White Sox have lost 7 in a row. They have yet to win a series. They are the only team left to not win a series yet. 7 in a row. They've lost to the Phillies, then swept by the Rays, and they just got swept by the Blue Jays. And guess what? They play the Rays for a 4-game set this weekend in Chicago. Who is your 8th team? That was
your number 8. I've got the Baltimore Orioles. They are second place, tied in the AL East. They are 8-2 in their last 10 games. And let's see my notes here. Orioles have been playing good teams, decent teams mixed in. I take that back. They've played Texas and New York Yankees. Otherwise, they've played Boston. They've played Oakland. They played the White Sox.
You can't say Boston's not a good team, though. They're at 500. That entire division's above 500.
Right. But in the amount of runs that Boston gives up. So I didn't mean to say that Boston.
But Boston scores a lot of runs, too.
They've played Washington, they've played White Sox, and they've played Detroit. They've played some of the worst teams and bottom of the barrel teams in baseball.
Yeah.
But they're 8-2 in their last 10 games. 9-4 at home, so they're winning at home and winning on the road. 7-4 away. Which then I'll take me right into my 9th team. Is our Chicago Cubs.
Okay.
Hard to argue a little bit. They've got the best run differential in the NL.
Yep. Coming into today at plus 45,
Yeah. When you look at the best teams at the end of the year, the playoff teams, it's usually the teams with the best run differential. So if that just continues to trend, the Cubs have been playing the Padres. They've been playing
the Dodgers.
They played the Mets.
They haven't played the Mets yet. They played the Dodgers. They've played
Texas, Seattle, Dodgers, and they've won recently. They lost against the Dodgers, but otherwise they won 1, 2, 3, 4 series in a row.
They hadn't lost a series since the first of the season when they lost to Milwaukee. So the Dodgers series was the first time they lost since Milwaukee early in the year. The Cubs are also my 9th team. I was trying not to be homer with this. I do have the Brewers ahead of them in that division. I don't even have the Pirates ranked in the top 10 because, as you mentioned earlier in the episode, kind of more flukish because they haven't played as much of those competitive teams. But the Cubs, you mentioned it, it's the run differential. They're hitting the ball. They haven't even reached the warm weather months where the ball starts to fly out of Wrigley Field a lot. And their pitching has been fantastic. Stroman and Steele, as we talked about earlier on in the episode, but Drew Smyly, this is something I want to talk about. I was at the game on Friday. I almost threw a perfect game. Took my daughter Aubrey for the first game of her life at Wrigley Field. And she was like in the 4th inning. She's like, I got to go potty. I was like, okay. So we went in the bathroom and she's like, I kind of want to go to Noni's house again, which is my mom's house. And I'm like, ugh. And then in the bathroom I hear, and Drew Smyly, perfect through 5. And I was like, no way. I was like, I'm not going to be the guy who leaves a perfect game and the perfect game actually goes through, right? Like the big baseball guy in me, I cannot be the baseball guy who left a perfect game because of his daughter. So I was like, nope, we're staying. Got put on TV. Well, thank you to Boog Shambi. But
good for you, Brendan, for staying. So I was watching that game at a restaurant.
That's right.
And it was after my grandma. It was following my grandma's funeral. We went to a restaurant to all eat. Big thing. And I went over to the bar and saw the Cubs were on. I'm in Chicago. Of course the Cubs were on. I sat from the first inning on. I shoveled my food down, went back to the bar, and was watching that game. He had the perfect, through 7? And in the 8th, he lost it?
Top of the 8th.
So in between the 7th and 8th inning, I think in the bottom of the 7th, I was forced to leave the bar.
So it's your
the
fault.
Restaurant.
It's Michael's fault, everybody.
And the moment we got in the car, the first thing we finally found it on 670 The Score. The first thing we heard was that play, and they lost the perfect bid. So I'm not gonna blame me. You can't blame me. I was forced. It was my ride. I had to. My Angie and my daughter had to go back to the house to take a nap. So they took the car. I stayed. I should have Ubered back.
You should have. But you didn't have your phone because you left that
Sorry, Drew. No, I didn't have my phone. That's true. I did leave that at home.
Yeah, so you could,
because
I said I was gonna text you. You could have Ubered, and then I was like, oh, he didn't have his phone. But the Cubs come in 9th, and I'll talk again about my Cubs experience in a second. And then yours 10th was Milwaukee. Mine is the Baltimore Orioles, for all the reasons that you had them in 8th. So there is our list.
Do we have the same top 10, just in different order? Or
no, you had Texas.
You left Texas out.
You had Texas, and I had Minnesota, and those are the only two. Oh, you had San Diego, and I had the Dodgers as well. So those are the two differences.
Oh, okay.
But you can find that full list if you got bored listening to us talk or fast forwarded through this. That is on our Instagram page. I'll make sure to get that graphic out for our top 10 so far. This has been episode 23. I'm going to call it the Michael Jordan episode, because Michael Jordan's the best 23 that ever was. He's the GOAT. But I thought it was kind of cool, and I think we might introduce this segment going forward. Who's the best 23 to ever play the game of baseball? Who do you think?
So I have to look up who 23s are. I can't think of who 23s...
I'm not trying to be Homer-ish here, but I think it's Ryne Sandberg.
MLB players wearing number 23. Players who wore number 23 from BaseballReference.com. Thank you, Baseball Reference, for pulling this stat out of here. So immediately comes up at the top there is Bobby Abreu, who was a great hitter in our time. Javier Baez with the New York Mets for 1 year. Jesus Alou, Felipe Alou, they followed each other. Willie Banks, Brian Banks, Paul Bacco.
Are you going through them in alphabetical order? This is going to take forever.
So, all right. No, here we go. All right. By WAR, let's go top 6. Zach Greinke at 76.9 WAR. Ryne Sandberg at 67.9. Luis Tiant at 66.1. And Bobby Abreu at 60.2.
But I don't think Abreu always wore... See, I don't think Abreu was 23 his entire career, and I don't think Greinke has been...
He wore it for 1 year.
Right, so
Greinke wore it for 10 years.
Okay.
Sandberg wore it for 15.
So Sandberg's the best 23.
Tiant 11.
Sandberg's the best.
Ted Simmons is the only guy who's worn it more at 21 years, and he has a 50.3 WAR.
Yeah, so it's Sandberg.
You could argue Sandberg and Ted Simmons, but Sandberg has the higher WAR over his career.
Yeah. I'm going Ryne Sandberg. I know there have been better seasons in number 23, but as a career, I think that Ryne Sandberg. So the 23 stays in Chicago. 23 was a big number in Chicago growing up, obviously, with Michael and also Ryan. But I think that's it. Don Mattingly was a pretty good 23 when he wore it. But
Oil Can Boyd.
Who?
Oil Can Boyd.
Yes. Oh, I remember
1980.
him.
Is that his real name?
I have no idea, man. It's probably a nickname.
I think I see.
But
it's got to be.
I did want to give a quick recap. I already talked about taking my daughter to the game on Friday, but it was a 13-0 blowout. The Cubs destroyed the Dodgers.
Great games, yeah.
Almost saw a perfect game. My daughter's first game at Wrigley Field. I went the night before. It was great seeing all those guys out there. Also, it was a good game until it wasn't. It was 2-2 going into the ninth, and that was the game. Outman hit a home run, and he hit it, and I literally just stood up and started walking up the stairs. I was like, all right, time to go. They're done. So that was my Cubs Wrigley experience. You can find a little bit more on that, as I mentioned, on YouTube. I put out a YouTube short of the immaculate skies that were at the game that night. I don't know if you saw what the clouds looked like as that game started on that Thursday night, but they were incredible.
I saw your picture. That was awesome.
Yeah, awesome stuff there. Beautiful. Go check that out on our Twitter page, also on our YouTube page. You can find us on YouTube. That is right at Barrels and Barrels Pod on YouTube. So look that up. That's where you can find us on Instagram as well as Facebook. Twitter is at Barrels and Barrels. And Michael is our latest follower. It only took him 7 months. Michael, where can we find you?
Follower of the week.
Yeah, follower of the week. Michael, where can we find you on Instagram?
BNB_Burns.
And you've been a little more active on Twitter, obviously, because you just followed us, and that is Burns BNB, I believe.
I couldn't believe it. I saw it, and I knew when I saw it wasn't. I was like, if I click this button, Brandon's gonna see that I followed.
No, I knew. Here's the thing. I knew you hadn't followed, and I had hoped that you weren't going to follow, so I was going to call you out on the podcast. So this morning, when I looked and saw that Michael Burns follows, I was like, no.
Oh, you were planning that for this week?
Huh?
You were planning that for this week?
Yeah, that's why last night during our Instagram Live and our taping last night, I was like, I'm not going to say anything. I got something for this later. I can be found on Instagram, whiskey_weather. If you want, again, please subscribe to us on YouTube if you haven't already. And if you've made it this far, you obviously like our podcast. Please do that. And also rate, review us on Apple, Spotify, any of those podcasting platforms that you listen to us on. This has been episode 23, the Michael Jordan episode. Thank you for sticking with us for another hour and a half. We love our bourbon. We love our baseball. Thank you for listening. We love high proof and high heat. That's our slogan. I remember we developed that slogan at the beginning, and we have yet to say that word.
We've never used it.
We have never used it. So high proof and high heat. That's our slogan.
Let's go.
Coined. Bam, bam, bam. Michael, any last words for our friends, family, and listeners?
High proof and high heat, and baby, let's go.